Assalamualaikum and hi class. Welcome back. Welcome to chapter 3 hypothesis testing. Oh my god. Okay, so the time has come, okay, for y'all to venture into this chapter which is known to be one of the most difficult chapter in your statistics, but personally to me I would say that this is the most difficult chapter in your statistics. Now I'm not trying to scare you off, but I need you to be aware of the fact that you need to really focus on this chapter because it is a really big chapter. Okay, it is one of the longest chapter in applied stats, and you really need to have the right attitude to learn this chapter. What I mean is you cannot procrastinate. Okay, while watching this video, if you came across something that you don't understand from my explanation, it is very important that you WhatsApp me immediately, okay? PM me immediately so that I can explain it to you before you move on to the next explanation on my video. Okay, first and foremost, you need to have the right attitude to learn this chapter. No procrastination. If you have any question, immediately ask me. Now, while watching this video, if there are things that you feel like I don't understand this, that is normal. That is completely normal because this is a quite a difficult chapter. So the right thing to do is, if there is anything that you don't understand, you really need to PM me immediately. Okay, I can personally explain it to you in some other way, um to make sure that you do understand this chapter. Okay, so this first video is gonna be very important, so please pay attention and PM me immediately if you have any question. Okay, so are you ready? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hypothesis testing. Okay, so first maybe I need to introduce to you some important terms in this chapter. Number one, what is the meaning of hypothesis? So I'm sure that you have heard of this before, perhaps during your science classes during high schools or anything like that. So it is literally it is a statement, it is an assumption, it is a claim, okay, or maybe an idea that is proposed for the sake of argument so that it can be tested to see if it might be true. So basically a hypothesis is just a statement that has yet to be proven. Okay, it is a statement that has no strong evidence. That is hypothesis. So when you have a statement that has no strong evidence, so you need to conduct a certain testing to see if it is true or not. For example, okay, yeah, I'm gonna use the Pak Mail scenario, okay, throughout this semester. So Pak Mail claimed that the milk produced by cow breed A tastes better than breed B. So this is one hypothesis. Okay, so he can claim anything. You yourself, you can claim about anything. Maybe you want to claim that most of applied stats students will score B for this semester. Yep, a statement. Okay, any statement that can be proven, that is hypothesis. Okay, and then another thing that you should know, that a statistical hypothesis. Okay, so what we're doing this chapter is we are more interested in looking into this statistical hypothesis. It is also a hypothesis but specific to statistic. So statistical hypothesis is a statement concerning a parameter of one or more populations. So it is also a hypothesis, a statement that needs to be tested, but it is specific, okay, concerning a parameter. So I hope you guys still remember what is parameter. Population mean, population proportion, population standard deviation, and population variance. So any claim, okay, any assumptions or any statement that involve these parameters is called statistical hypothesis. For example, Pak Mail claimed that the average amount of milk produced by breed A is more than 120 liters. So in this statement, it involves population mean, average here. Okay, so he thinks that the population mean of milk produced by breed A is more than 120 liters. So this is one statistical hypothesis that can be tested, okay, tested pula, that can be tested using hypothesis testing. So what is hypothesis testing, class? It is the procedure of decision making in evaluating the statistical hypothesis. Okay, I'm gonna explain to you, okay, what are the steps to conduct a hypothesis testing, okay, which is a procedure to evaluate your statistical hypothesis. Um, yeah, so for example, in the case of Pak Mail, because he is concerning about the population mean, so if he were to conduct a hypothesis testing to test his claim, he will need to test, is it true that the mu of breed A is greater than 120 liters. So this is um, some example lah, okay, how to conduct hypothesis testing. Yeah, of course I'm going to explain more details to you soon, okay. Let's go to the next slide. So basically there are three types of hypothesis testing. There are three different methods to conduct hypothesis testing. Three different methods. Number one is the traditional approach. Number two is the confidence interval approach. And finally, we have the p-value approach. So I'm going to teach all these three approaches to you throughout this chapter. But, okay, we're going to start with the traditional approach. Okay, so how do you conduct a hypothesis testing? To test a claim involve population mean, okay? To test a claim involve population proportion. To test a claim involving a population variance or population standard deviation. So yeah, we're going to take a look at the traditional approach of conducting hypothesis testing to test your statistical hypothesis, okay? And generally there are three types of tests. In your hypothesis testing, there are three types of tests. Okay, so this is the first thing that you need to know. We're still in the process of learning new terms and definitions. Okay, I'm going to show you the steps later. But first, let us learn a few definitions that will be important for you to build a strong foundation for this chapter. There are three types of hypothesis testing: a two-tailed test, a right-tailed test, or a left-tailed test. So basically there are two actually, two-tailed test and one-tailed test. This one-tailed test has two categories, right-tailed test and left-tailed test. So I think we better just say it like there are three types of tests, okay? Two-tailed test, right-tailed test, and left-tailed test. So yeah, so this is what your hypothesis is gonna look like, okay? So I'll just introduce this to you briefly. So basically you should have two statements in your hypothesis testing. You should have two statements, okay? H null and H1. H null, okay, a null hypothesis denoted by H null is a statistical hypothesis that states an assertion about one or more population parameters. The alternative hypothesis, okay, denoted by H1, is a statistical hypothesis that states the assertion of all situations that not covered by H null. Okay, class, so you might find this definition a little bit hard to understand, but that is normal. That is okay, right? You're gonna understand this better when I explain to you the example. Okay, so just let's hold on to the definitions. Okay, now let's come back to this hypothesis. All right, so you see here, H null, theta equals to theta naught. H1 theta not equals to theta naught. So this is for the case of two-tailed test. And then theta here, let me remind you, theta here is a general representation. Okay, this is a notation that represents all parameters. Okay, which means that if your hypothesis testing involve a two-tailed test, so H null here, okay, this could be mu, this could be pi, this could be sigma, or this could also be sigma square. Okay, so this notation, theta here, is a general notation that represents all the parameters. Okay, equals to theta naught, which is the hypothesized value. Alright, for example, let's take the case of Pak Mail just now. He claimed that breed A cow produces more than 120 liters. Okay, so because his claim is concerning the population mean, so the parameter for Pak Mail just now is population mean, so I'm gonna use mu lah. Okay, mu breed A is more than 120 liters. So in this case, okay, Pak Mail punya claim ni, okay, his claim belongs to the right tail test. Because his claim involved this expression, greater than expression. So Pak Mail, if he were to conduct hypothesis testing to test his claim, the hypothesis testing will be a right tail test, hypothesis testing, in which the parameter here will be mu, okay, here mu, here also mu, and then the hypothesized value here will be 120 liters. So for Pak Mail just now, he will have H null mu less or equal to 120 liters, H1 mu greater or equal, greater than 120 liters. Okay, so here the parameter here is mu and the hypothesized value here is 120 liters. Okay, all right, so let's just take note on that. Okay, you will understand better when we go through the examples. All right, so there you go. Okay, so how do you know whether your hypothesis testing will be a two-tail test, right-tail test, or left-tail test? So that depends on the expression used to represent your claim. Okay, so just now Pak Mail claim the milk is more than 120 milliliter, right? So to represent more than, I will use the expression of greater than. So that's why he should do a right tail test hypothesis testing. Okay, now let's note that the H null should has equal expression and H1 should has unequal expression. In hypothesis testing, the H null is always on trial and assumed to be true. So this is important, okay? Please take note on this. H null is always on trial and assumed to be true, okay? And then the null and alternative hypotheses are stated together. Yep, which means that in a hypothesis testing, you should have both H null and H1 written in your steps in your procedure. Okay, you should have both H null and H1. Alright, so next slide. So these are the procedure in hypothesis testing. There are 5 steps, class. Come on, get ready. 5 steps. You're going to understand more during the example. So step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. Step 1, formulate the hypothesis and state the claim. So this is what Pak Mail should do just now. Okay, he should find out what is his claim, and then he should write down the H null, H1. Okay, so here Pak Mail should already determine the type of hypothesis testing: two tail, right tail, or left tail. Right. Okay. Okay, so this is the table that you can use as your reference, right, to choose which mathematical expressions best represent your claim. So like Pak Mail just now, his claim involved average, okay, correct? So that's why I use the notation mu for average. And then his claim is concerning about more than. So because of that, it is this expression. Okay, more than is also equivalent to greater than, above, higher than. So that's why I use this expression to represent Pak Mail's claim. Mu A greater than 120 liters. Okay, so if this is the claim, so because this is greater than, so greater than class, now pay attention, greater than belongs to H1. Get it? So first, why do we choose the expression greater than? Because this is the expression that best describes the word more than. Okay, and then after you already determine what is the expression to use, you need to know whether this expression belongs to H null or is it belongs to H1. So this table will help you to recognize, okay, which expression belongs to which hypothesis statement. Is it belongs to the null hypothesis or is it belongs to the alternative hypothesis? So for this case, Pak Mail's claim, okay, his claim here belongs to the alternative hypothesis. Okay, so what do I mean by belongs to alternative hypothesis? Again, you will understand better during the example. So this is the first step, class. So for first step, you might want to refer to this table. So if you go through the slide notes, this will be on slide page 7. So yep, I think it's really important that you take note on this table. It's really important for you to do your first step. Okay, first step. Okay, moving on. The second step is to choose the appropriate test statistics value. Okay, so step 2 is to calculate the test statistics value. All right, so the test statistic is a sample statistic calculated from the data obtained by probability sampling. So meaning that you will calculate this test statistic value using the sample data. Okay, so given a set of data, you get the population mean, you get the population standard deviation and so on, and then you use the formula to calculate your test statistics value. So test statistics in step 2 here, so this is the second step, right? Test statistic could be z-test, t-test, chi-square test, or f-test. So there are several formulas that you can use to calculate your test statistics. Okay, so which test should you use? Which test should Pak Mail use? So basically, Pak Mail should either use z-test or t-test. Yeah, I'm going to explain on that more later. So yeah, this is test statistics. Step number 2, you need to calculate test statistics value. Okay, and then step number 3, okay, in doing hypothesis testing, find critical value at a given alpha. Okay, so yeah, the question will determine what is the significance level, what is alpha. So you need to establish the test criterion by determining the critical value point and the rejection region, which is based on 3 factors, which I will explain more on this later. So that is step number 3. Okay, and then step number 4, you need to make a decision to reject or not reject H null. Okay, make a decision to reject or not reject H null. So class, do you remember just now I explained that? Let me go back to that slide. Where is it? Okay, the H null, okay, is always assumed to be true. So a hypothesis testing is conducted to see whether H null, is it really true or is it needs to be rejected. Okay, so based on this theory, okay, because of this theory that we assume H null is always true. So in a hypothesis testing step 4, what you need to do is you need to decide, okay, do we accept that H null is true or do we need to reject that H null is true? So how to make this decision? Again, I'll explain this to you later. But basically, step 4 is about making decision. Step 5, okay, finally, step 5, you need to make conclusion whether to reject or to accept the claim at a given alpha value. Okay, so Pak Mail just now, in step 5, he will decide lah, he will conclude, okay. Is it true that the population mean of breed A is greater than 120 liter or is it not greater than 120 liters? Okay, so this is another table that you might find it helpful for you to do step 5. So this table is on slide note page 14 if I'm not mistaken. Okay, slide note page 14. Okay, so yep, that is the 5 steps of doing hypothesis testing class. Step 1, write down your H null H1. Step 2, calculate the test statistic value. Step 3, establish critical value. Step 4, make a decision, okay, whether to reject or not reject H null. And then step 5, make a conclusion, okay, to reject or to accept the claim. Yeah, this is the traditional approach of conducting hypothesis testing. Consists of 5 steps. Okay, class? So I think then now you are ready to go to the first example. So for the first example, we're going to discuss about the case of hypothesis testing for a population mean. So stay tuned. Okay, watch my next video on the hypothesis testing for a population mean. Okay, bye.